Princess Selen stood on the high terrace as dust storm winds whipped her hair. She looked across the ruined city of Jarl with a heavy heart. Once, this place had been bright and full of life. Now its towers lay broken and empty. She pressed her hand to the smooth stone railing. Cold marble offered little comfort. Memories of her daughter Lyra flooded Selen's mind. She remembered Lyra's laughter echoing through the halls. She remembered the way her small hand fit in Selen's palm. Each memory felt like a star fading. In a dark sky, the raid had come without warning. Sky corsairs had swept down in their black ships. They had stolen supplies, treasures, and most cruelly Lyra. Selen's guards had faltered. In the chaos, her child vanished. Now, Selen's days passed in endless search. She moved through empty temples made of white stone. She walked among broken statues of former kings and queens. Prayers made no answers. Priests offered ancient words. But her hope was gone. Her closest guard, Captain Eric Young, stood behind her. He cared for Selen as if she were his own sister. Eric spoke softly, his voice steady. "Majesty, we should rest." "The storm grows stronger." Selen shook her head. She would not rest. She would not sleep until she found Lyra. Still, Eric guided her away from the terrace to a small room that once held lush gardens. Now it held only cracked planters and dead vines. He laid food on a low table. Selen barely noticed. Eric watched her eat a few bites. He had known Selen since they were young. She had learned to rule from him. He had trained his soldiers to protect her. Now he felt helpless. Outside, the wind howled, dust filled the air. Eric closed the heavy door against the storm. He placed a hand on Selen's shoulder. "We have followed every lead," he said. "We have questioned merchants, traders, even corsair prisoners. None had seen your daughter." He paused. "But there is one traveler calling himself John Moore. He claims he can help." Selen stared at Eric. "A human?" she whispered. Humans rarely came this deep into the ruined systems of Jarl. Most feared the wastelands beyond the outer walls. But some came seeking adventure or lost treasure. "He is a scholar and an explorer," Eric said. "He has studied our languages and our legends. He arrives tomorrow at dawn. He asks an audience." Selen's heart picked up. A flicker of hope glowed. She rose and moved to the window. She could not see through the storm, but she felt the possibility of change. That night Selen sat alone in the palace library. Rows of ancient scrolls lined the walls. She opened a large book of old maps. She traced the routes corsairs might take through the Iron WS to the Iron DS. The Iron Wastelands were a place of broken rock and metal. Once rich in ore, they were now abandoned. Mines full of traps and wild creatures. Rumors said corsairs used hidden passes there. Selen's mind worked through each path. She read about underground rivers and deep caverns. She marked places where corsairs had set up camps. Dawn came with a gray sky. Selen wore a simple robe of dark fabric. She made her way to the audience hall. Columns of white marble rose on each side. Eric stood at the door. Inside, John Moore waited. He was human. His hair was brown and cut short. His eyes were gentle and curious. He wore simple clothing with straps for tools at his belt. His ship's emblem was stitched on his shoulder. He bowed low. "Princess Selen," he said in a clear voice. "I am honored to meet you." Selen nodded. She spoke slowly. "You seek to help me find my child." John lifted a small device from his belt. A slim metal tablet glowed with maps and notes. "I have studied your world. I believe corsairs took your daughter to a hidden fortress in the Iron Wastelands." Eric moved closer. He looked at the device. The symbols on it matched the ancient runes on the maps. John continued. "I have charted a safe route to the edge of the wastelands. I know of a canyon called Red Canyon. There the corsairs trade goods. If Lyra passes through, they will bring her there." Selen felt a spark of hope. She lifted her chin. "We leave at first light?" John nodded, and Eric bowed. After the meeting, Selen felt a kind of electricity pulsing in her veins. For the first time in many moons, she slept with a sense of purpose. That night she packed a small bag. She took only essentials, water supplies, rations, and a small bundle of tools. She folded a piece of cloth in rich purple her royal color around a locket holding a picture of Lyra. Eric brought her a simple map of the route. He marked each resting point and hazard. Selen studied it until her eyes grew heavy. When dawn turned the sky pale gray, Selen stood at the palace gates. A group of soldiers stood ready. Among them was Mia Moore, John's sister and scout. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. John approached. He held a scanner that lit the ground with soft blue light. He tested the air and soil. Selen watched him work. "This way," John said. He led the group down the main road and into the ash-blown fields. Silence fell over the caravan. Each step took them farther from the city. Selen gripped the locket inside her robe. Her heart beat with each step. The journey had begun. Selen would follow John and Eric into the wastes. She vowed to bring her child home or die trying. The wind carried her promise into the empty world. As the group vanished into the gray horizon, Selen held her head high. She would not lose hope again. The group pressed on through the ash fields. Princess Selen walked between John Moore and Captain Eric Young. Each step was heavy in the gray dust. Selen remembered the warm breeze of her world before the raid. Now the wind burned her cheeks and filled her lungs with choking dust. She tightened her cloak around her and gripped the locket holding her daughter's picture. Eric consulted the map under a weak sun. "We should reach Red Canyon by midday," he said. His voice was calm but serious. "We will rest there and gather supplies." John walked beside Selen with his scanner. The device glowed softly in his hand as he scanned the ground. After a while he spoke. "The soil here is rich in iron, but it is unstable. Small tremors may follow the storms. We must watch our footing." Selen nodded. She trusted John's judgment. He had taught her to read the scanner's blips. She saw pockets of energy under the ground. She asked, "Do those pockets mean danger?" John stopped and pointed. "Those are trapped pockets of methane. If we walk there at the wrong moment, we could trigger an explosion. I will mark them on the map." Mia Moore, who walked behind them, knelt and drew circles in the dust with a stick. She marked the spots. "We will avoid these places," she said. She was quiet but sharp, with eyes that missed nothing. The rest of the party followed. Soldiers carried packs and water canisters. The caravan moved with purpose but caution. During a break, Selen sat on a low rock. She opened the locket and looked. At Lyra's picture, her daughter smiled with bright eyes. Selen pressed it to her heart and whispered, "I will find you, my child." John knelt beside her. He spoke softly. "Princess, these wastelands are harsh, but I believe we can find her. I have spent years exploring remote worlds. If anyone can do this, it is you and your allies." Selen looked at him. She saw kindness in his eyes. She realized that she had begun to trust human hearts. She stood and offered her hand. John took it. They shared a moment of quiet hope. Eric cleared his throat. "We should move. Night will fall soon." They resumed walking. The sky grew darker with clouds of ash. Thunder rumbled in the distance. As they crossed a ridge, a sudden quake shook the ground. Soldiers stumbled and fell. Rocks tumbled down the slope. "Steady!" Eric shouted. He reached for Selen's arm and guided her away from the edge. John scanned the ground. "The quake may have opened a cave system beneath us. We should avoid the ridge. Follow me down." The group moved to a lower path. The air was cooler but filled with the smell of hot metal. Small vents in the earth released steam. "This way leads to Red Canyon," John said. He pointed east where a deep crevice sliced the land. The party made camp near a dry stream bed. Eric set up a small fire that cast a weak glow. Soldiers gathered around, their eyes tired. Selen sat by the fire and warmed her hands. She watched. John and Mia checked their supplies. John checked rations while Mia inspected weapons. Mia glanced at Selen and spoke. "We will face Corsairs soon. They will guard the trade route well." Selen nodded. "Lyra may be scared. I must reach her before nightfall tomorrow." John joined them by the fire. "I have planned our approach. We will split into 2 teams. Eric and I will scout ahead. You and Mia will circle the canyon rim to look for signs of movement. Then we will meet at the southern pass. Selen studied his plan. It was clear but risky. She knew she could trust John and Eric. She turned to Mia. Do you agree? Mia smiled. I know this land well. We can move quietly. If we find corsairs, we can signal with mirror flashes. Selen felt confidence grow. She looked at her guards. Each was strong and brave. She was not alone. Smoke drifted upward, and the ash fell like snow. Selen thought of Lara huddled in a cage of light. She could almost feel her daughter's soft curls against her cheek. The next morning, the group broke camp. The sky was a pale red. The canyon walls glowed like burning metal. John led Eric south, while Selen and Mia climbed a rocky slope. Soldiers remained behind to break camp. As they climbed, Selen asked Mia, Have you seen corsair markings before? Mia nodded. They use symbols of a black hawk. They carve it on rock near hidden pathways. I have seen it near old mines. Selen scanned the walls. She saw faint scratches. Mia knelt and ran her finger over one. The hawk's wing was carved in dark iron. Selen's heart raced. She pressed her palm against the stone. She felt close to Lara. Mia pointed ahead. There is an entrance. We move at dawn. Tonight we rest here. They set up a small campsite on a ledge. Selen lit a small lamp inside a shield of glass. She prepared rations and water. Later, Selen sat alone at the edge of the ledge. Below, the canyon floor was hidden in shadows. She spoke softly. Hold on, Lara. I will find you soon. John and Eric returned at dusk. Their faces were serious. John spoke first. We saw corsairs patrolling the trade route. They will not let a princess pass freely. Eric added, They have set traps at the southern pass. We must move carefully. Selen stood and faced them. We have no choice. I must go forward. There is no time to lose. John nodded. We move at first light. I will lead the way. Mia will stay. With you on the rim, Eric will signal when it is safe. That night Selen barely slept. She thought of Lyra's small hand, her laughter, her bright eyes. When the light turned pale gray, the party moved. John advanced into the dark entrance. Selen and Mia followed at a distance. Inside, the tunnel was narrow and silent. The walls were wet and cold. Selen felt chills as she moved forward. John paused where the corridor split. He held up a hand. Soldiers behind him crouched. This way leads to the trade chamber, he whispered. The cages are there. Selen's breath caught. She stepped forward on trembling legs. Mia stayed close. Stay behind me, princess, she said. John led them through twisting paths. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber lit by glowing crystals. Corsairs stood near trading stalls carved from rock. Lyra was in a cage of light at the center. She looked small and frightened. Selen felt tears in her eyes. She called out softly, Lyra. Lyra turned and saw her mother. Her small face lit up with hope. Corsairs noticed and raised alarms. John drew his weapon while Eric and soldiers moved to flank the guards. Selen pressed her palm against the cage. Light crackled. She spoke words of power from her royal lineage. The cage flickered. John leapt forward and deactivated the light matrix. The cage fell open. Lyra ran into Selen's arms. Selen held her daughter close and whispered, I have you. I will never lose you again. Soldiers fought corsairs in the background. Eric called, We clear the exit. Move now. Ready? Selen lifted Lara as John and Mia covered their retreat. They ran through the tunnel as rocks tumbled behind them. Outside, the sun had risen higher. Eric and soldiers formed a shield. Corsair traps exploded in distant echoes. Selen held Lyra tight. Dust covered their faces. She looked at John. Thank you, she said. John nodded, breathing hard. We must move before more come. Eric guided the group back toward the canyon rim. Lyra clung to her mother. As they reached the ledge, Selen looked down at the empty world. Her daughter was safe. Hope burned anew in her heart. John and Eric exchanged glances. They had risked much and won. Selen kissed Lara's forehead. The child reached for the locket around her mother's neck. Selen smiled and whispered, we go? Home, my love. With that, they began the journey back to the city of Jarl. Selen carried her daughter and hope bloomed across the broken land. After days of travel, the small caravan reached the edge of Jarl's iron wastelands. Princess Selen carried Lara in her arms. The child slept softly against her shoulder. Selen's heart felt warm for the first time since the raid. She looked. Down at the narrow path before them, Captain Eric Young led the way. His boots kicked up clouds of red dust as he walked. He paused and turned to Selen. We will pass through the valley ahead. It will be safer than crossing the open plains. He pointed to a map drawn in dust on a flat rock. John Moore and Mia followed behind. John held his scanner high. The device glowed faint blue. He scanned the ground for hidden dangers. Mia watched for ambush. The valley is narrow and winding, John said. Corsairs may watch the entrances. He tapped his scanner. But I detect no sign of trap signals right now. We should move quickly. Selen nodded. She adjusted the bundle on her back. Soldiers flanked her, their weapons at the ready. The little group moved into the mouth of the valley. Inside, the walls rose steep and dark. Vines of metal and rock clung to the stone. The air was cool but smelled of rust. Selen remembered the days when Jarl welcomed traders here. Now, only echoes remained. Each footstep sounded loud in the silence. Stay close, Mia said to Selen. The walls can hide ambushers. She scanned the heights with sharp eyes. John raised his hand. The group froze. He pointed to a thin slit in the canyon wall. A faint red glow pulsed. Alarm beacon, he whispered. Corsairs watch here. If we move closer, they will signal others. He knelt and marked the spot. Eric studied the beacon. We must disable it. Selen, can you use your royal key? Selen nodded and took a slender tool from her pack. Her family made keys that opened ancient locks and deactivated old devices. She slipped along the wall and reached the beacon. Wires of shining metal wound around glowing crystals. She placed the key and turned it. The crystals dimmed with soft clicks. The glow faded. Behind her, soldiers watched the entrance. No alarm sounded. John smiled. Well done, now we move. He led the way further into the valley. As they walked, Lyra stirred and cried softly. Selen held her and soothed her. She whispered songs from bedtime long ago. Lyra's tears dried and she fell asleep again. You sing well, John said as he passed. Selen smiled. I sang to her every night. Her voice trembled. John nodded, understanding her grief and joy. The path opened into a larger clearing. Giant metal arches lay broken on the ground. Old machines lay scattered like bones. This was a factory once, Eric said. It made tools for mining iron. He pointed to a half-buried machine with a faded emblem. Selen bent and touched the emblem. Memories of her childhood came back. She had walked here with Lara and learned to count machines. We cannot stay long, John said. Corsairs use abandoned places like this to set ambush. He scanned for heat signatures. Nothing moved. Soldiers moved through the wreckage. They searched for signs of Corsair traps. They found roots of explosive crystals woven around beams. Mia set charges to collapse the entrances after their passage. She worked quickly. Selen watched as her allies prepared. She felt trust in their strength. When the charges were set, John led them through a narrow gap between two metal arches. They emerged into bright sunlight. Before them lay a wide plain of red rock. In the distance, dark shapes moved along the horizon. Corsair ships hovered low over the plain. Their black sails glinted in the sun. They see us, Mia whispered. We must hide. She guided the group toward a low ridge. Eric and soldiers covered the horses and wagons with dust. Selen and Lara crouched behind a boulder. John knelt beside them. From the ridge, Corsairs watched. A signal fire burned bright. They will send patrols soon, John said. Selen looked down at Lyra. The child opened her eyes and saw the ships. She cried. Selen held her close. I am here, my love, she said. The child nestled in her mother's arms. We must move now, Eric said. He helped mount Lara on a horse. Selen rode beside her. Soldiers led the way up the ridge. At the crest, They saw a hidden path down the other side. It wound between giant boulders. John scanned the path. It is narrow, but corsairs may not see us. He led the way down. As they descended, Selen whispered prayers to the old gods. She hoped their power still walked the world. At the bottom, the path opened near a dry riverbed. They moved quickly into the bed. Dust rose as horses passed. Behind them, corsair patrols moved across the plain. The ships remained above. "We are clear for now," John said. Selen exhaled and patted Lyra's head. "Thank you for bringing me here," she said to John. He shook his head. "You brought us here. I only followed your lead." His voice was kind. They paused in the riverbed. Soldiers checked horses and loads. Eric and Mia went scouting ahead. Selen sat on a rock and watched the sky. The sun was low. Evening would come soon. She looked at her allies. Each faced the coming danger with calm. She felt proud and grateful. "We move at dawn," Eric called. That night, Selen and her group camped in a hidden hollow. They huddled around small fires. John kept watch while others slept. Selen sat beside him. "Will we make it to the fortress tomorrow?" she asked softly. John scanned the map. "The fortress lies on a hill beyond the patrol zone. We must be silent. We can reach it before noon." He paused. "And you will see Lyra safe in your arms without fear." Selen reached for his hand. "Your faith makes me strong." She pressed his palm to her heart. John looked away and smiled. As the fire crackled, Selen thought of her child's bright eyes. She felt hope bloom. Morning came with a pale light. The group rose and prepared. Selen strapped Lyra to her chest in a sling. Soldiers checked weapons. John led them out of the hollow and toward the hill. Shadows stretched long behind them. The hill rose steep and rocky. At its peak stood a fortress of black stone. Red flags flew above high towers. Corsair banners whipped in the wind. Selen saw the fortress and felt her pulse quicken. Tomorrow she would end this journey, but tonight she rested and held her child. Hope and fear walked side by side in her heart. She vowed to face the dawn with courage. And so, under a sky of ash and stars, the princess and her allies prepared for the final approach. Dawn broke with pale light as the small caravan descended from the rocky hill. Princess Selen rode at the front, Lyra safe in her arms. The air was cool, but the tension burned in every heart. Behind them, John Moore, Captain Eric Young, and Mia Moore led the soldiers. The plain before the city lay wide and open. Red dust stretched to the horizon. Once, traders had passed here freely. Now, corsair ships blocked the path to Jarl's capital. Black sails cast long shadows. "They have gathered a force," Mia warned. She pointed to a row of corsair warriors waiting for them. Their armor was patched with iron plates and dark cloth. Eric raised his hand. "We must break through or we cannot reach the city. Selen, we can carry your child to safety behind our lines. Then John and I will lead a strike to scatter their ranks." Selen shook her head. "I will not leave Lyra. She belongs at my side." Her voice was steady. She tightened her grip on the locket around her neck. John placed a hand on Eric's arm. "We have fought together. We will all move as one." Eric nodded and lowered his sword. "Then we stand together." Soldiers formed a shield wall behind Selen. Mia took position on the flank. John prepared his scanner to detect traps. Corsair horns sounded from their ships. The ground vibrated as riders charged. Horses kicked up columns of dust. "Hold!" Selen raised her hand. She spoke words in her royal tongue. A wave of blue light spread from her, forming a shield that shimmered over the group. Corsair arrows struck the shield and scattered. Soldiers behind felt warmth but no pain. "Now!" John shouted. He raised a device that emitted a bright pulse. Corsair shields flickered. Eric led a charge. He and his soldiers crashed into the corsair line. Steel rang against steel. Mia fired her crossbow from the side, picking off archers. Selen moved with Lyra in her arms. She knelt with soldiers who fell. She placed healing light on their wounds. The glow eased pain and bound flesh. Soldiers fought fiercely on both sides. The corsairs pushed forward. But the human forces held the line. John sprinted through the gap between shields, scanning for the enemy leader. He found a tall warrior with a Black Hawk emblem on his chest. John charged and called out, "Your fight is with me?" The warrior laughed and raised a sword stained with rust. They clashed in a flurry of sparks. Mia fought corsairs beside Selin. She parried a blade that slipped past the shield. Selin saw Lyra's wide eyes and smiled. She spoke softly. "You are safe. Mother is with you." She stroked Lara's hair and whispered songs of home. The battle raged. Soldiers on both sides fell. The sun climbed higher, beating down on the fighters. John and the warrior circled each other. Sparks flew as their weapons met. John's scanner pulsed, sending bursts of energy that unbalanced the warrior. With a final strike, John disarmed the enemy and pushed him back. Soldiers cheered. The corsairs began to retreat under pressure. Eric spotted the corsair ships turning away. They fall back. At that moment, a blast of smoke rose from a corsair engine. A small hangar opened, releasing more fighters. Selin saw ships landing behind them. The plane would soon be filled with enemies. "We must end this now," John said. He scanned the hangar. Eric shouted. We pushed through the center. Soldiers formed for a final charge. Selin stood at the front, Lyra lifted against her chest. She spoke. Words of power again. The ground shook and a wave of blue light swept forward, knocking corsairs from their feet. With the shield raised, soldiers charged the hangar. Swords rang on metal as they drove deeper. John sprinted to the hangar door. He placed the scanner device against the metal and activated it. The door collapsed inward. Flames and dust filled the entrance. Corsairs stumbled and fell. Soldiers poured in and scattered the defenders. Eric faced the corsair captain in a final duel. With a swift blow, he drove his sword through the captain's chest. The remaining corsairs surrendered. The field grew, quiet except for the wind and the red dust. Selin lowered her shield. She knelt and set Lyra down beside a soldier. The child ran to her and hugged her legs. Selin lifted Lyra and held her close. Tears of relief rolled down her cheeks. John and Eric approached. John offered a hand. Selin took it and rose behind them. Soldiers gathered around the fallen corsairs. They bound prisoners and freed captives taken earlier. Mia found a child among the prisoners and called it to Selin. This little one was lost too. Selin knelt and held the child. She smiled at Lara. You are not alone now. We will bring all home. Soldiers cheered and raised their swords. The sense of victory filled the air. John looked at Selin. You have shown mercy and strength. You will lead your people to a new dawn? Selin nodded. She held Lara and the lost child. Behind her, the city's gates gleamed in the distance. We go home, she said. We go as one people. Humans and Urali together. With that, the caravan turned toward the capital. Hope bloomed in every heart as they walked into the bright sky, and so the princess led her daughter and her allies back to Ural. The path was not easy, but their victory on the field had opened the way. As they neared the city, the walls rose tall and strong. Banners of Jarl and Earth flew side by side. Selin held Lyra's hand and walked through the gates. Soldiers saluted, citizens cheered. She raised Lyra high. The child waved. In that moment, the world felt whole again. Hope had returned. The princess, her daughter, and their human friends would rebuild together. And in the hearts of all, a new chapter began. The city of Ural stood bright under a clear sky. Banners of Earth and Ural flew from every tower. Princess Selin walked through the streets with her daughter, Lyra, in hand. Behind them, John Moore, Captain Eric Young, Mia Moore, and soldiers followed. Citizens lined the streets, cheering the return of hope. Selin paused at a fountain in the city square. Water sparkled in the sun. She knelt beside Lyra and pointed to the dancing streams. One day you will play here again, she said softly. Lyra smiled and splashed water with her small hand. John watched from nearby. He spoke to Eric. They have rebuilt so quickly. Urali spirits are strong, Eric nodded. They stand together now. Your help united them more than any treaty. Mia joined. She carried a satchel of gifts for the royal family. I brought flowers from Earth and seeds for new gardens. Selen can plant them in the palace grounds, Selen approached. She accepted the satchel. Thank you, Mia. These will help us build beauty from ashes. She opened the satchel and admired. Pale blue petals. She placed a flower in Lyra's hair. Today was the day of the new alliance ceremony. Representatives from Earth and Jarl would meet in the Grand Hall. Selen would speak first. Eric guided Selen and Lyra to the Grand Hall. Soldiers stood at attention along the carpeted hall. Pillars of white marble rose to the ceiling. Light shone through colored crystals. Inside, people filled the benches. Delegates from Earth in simple uniforms sat beside Urali nobles in bright robes. The air buzzed with excitement. Selen stepped onto the dais, holding Lyra's hand. She looked at the crowd and spoke clearly. Today marks a new beginning for our worlds. We have faced darkness and found light together. She paused and lifted Lyra. The child waved to the crowd. Cheers rose, Selen continued. Lyra's return is a gift from our human friends. John Moore stood by my side and showed me courage and kindness. Today we honor that bond. John stood and bowed. The crowd applauded. Selen's eyes shone with hope. Let this alliance bring peace and growth. Let our children learn from each other. Let Earth and Jarl stand together for all time. Delegates rose and cheered. Banners fluttered. A new anthem played, blending Earth music and Urali choirs. After the ceremony, Selen and her group walked through the palace gardens. Green plants and flowers bloomed. Seeds from Earth had taken root. Selen pointed to pale blue and pale purple flowers swaying in the breeze. Lyra chased butterflies among the petals. John spoke softly. You have created beauty and unity here. I am honored to have helped. Selen smiled. You helped more than you know. You taught me to trust hope, Eric joined them. And I saw the strength of friendship between our peoples. Together we will rebuild Yorel's trade and culture. He looked at Lyra and laughed. Maybe your daughter will lead the next generation. Mia knelt to speak to Lyra. Would you like to plant a seed? Lyra nodded and held a small seed in her palm. Mia showed her how to press it into the soil. Selen and John knelt beside her. They helped cover the seed gently. This seed will grow strong, Selen said, like our alliance. Lyra patted the soil and looked up. It will grow big and pretty. She smiled, her eyes bright. As the sun set, torches lit the gardens. Guests gathered for a feast in the palace courtyard. Long tables held dishes from both Earth and Jarl. Smells of spiced meat and sweet fruits filled the air. Selen sat at the head table beside John and Eric. Lyra sat on her lap. Dancers moved to music under strings of lights. Delegates raised cups in a toast. Selen stood and said, to friendship, to hope, and to a future we build together. Glasses CLINKED. Music played and guests cheered. Selen and John shared a look of quiet joy. That night after the feast, Selen and John walked on the palace balcony. Moonlight shimmered on the gardens below. John spoke. I will return to Earth soon, but I will always remember this world and your kindness. Selen turned to him. Your people are welcome here always. Jarl is your home now. They stood in silence, listening to the night wind. Back in her chamber, Selen tucked Lyra into bed. She kissed her daughter's forehead. Lyra held the flower in her hand. Selen whispered, Sleep well, my love. Tomorrow we begin our new life. Lyra closed her eyes and murmured, Mama. Selen left and stood by the window. She looked out at the city lights. Hope glowed in every tower. She thought of the long journey, the loss, the search, the battle, the return. Each step led to this moment. Princess. Selen pressed a hand to her heart. She wore the locket with Lyra's picture. She felt gratitude for the human who returned her child and opened her world. The night was calm and bright. Tomorrow would bring work, rebuilding cities, forging trade, teaching children. Challenges lay ahead, but Selen believed in hope and unity. She would guide Jarl with compassion and strength. She would honor the promise she made to Lyra and to her people. And so, under a sky of stars, the princess closed her eyes and rested. Her daughter was safe, her people were united and a new chapter had begun.